Good morning, and good morning to John T. Fisher, who is the Vice President of all the communications agencies within the Publicis Group, but is here particularly this morning to talk about Saatchi and Saatchi, and really to help us understand why Saatchi and Saatchi thought it was important to enter the IAS Credentials Award last year, and to listen to what the experience was, and to really get John T.'s take on why he thinks agency credentials are important and why they have to be looked at. So, John T., would you like to share some thoughts on why you felt it was important to enter last year?
Yes, thank you, Jana. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll start with the second part first, because I think that's probably the most important part. I mean, for me, credentials are such a critical silent salesman for agencies, and I think while every agency has them, there are very few that really do stand out. And they're so important in both the pitching process, especially when it is intermediated in terms of finding shortlisting criteria for clients, but also I think very often in the kind of post-rationalization as well. When you've gone through a pitch process, often clients are referring back to those to double check their assumptions and really get a sense of the agency. So they really are important, but they're incredibly difficult to do well. I think you find that so many credentials are very much the same, and to really find a singular brand story and really capture the true distinctiveness of an agency, I think is incredibly important and often overlooked. So we spend a lot of time with our agencies trying to help them shape and craft those credentials. And I think that's a singular reason as to why we entered in the first place, because I think forcing yourselves to have that kind of accountability to really hone and craft something for an award in the same way as you do with your work, we should be treating them the same. You know, as much as we craft our work for awards, we've got to be doing the same for our credentials because they're that important. So I think that was really a driving reason as to why we wanted to enter this, and we're incredibly proud of the recognition that Saatchi and Saatchi got at the awards. And I think really to you, Jana, and to the IAS team, I think a big thanks for your ongoing support of this really important category, because it really helps to provide an accountability point for us with our agencies and helping us to really craft our credentials.
Okay, that's really important. And thank you for that. And you've made a very interesting point. And strangely enough, I was talking to another agency about this yesterday. The credentials that we ask for example, in a pitch process, and they are quite specific, it's obviously the agency background and details and people. So the importance of standing out can't be overemphasized, because in a competitive situation, that's when the rubber really hits the road. And literally, we always ask for all credentials documents to be in a printed format. And we know that it frustrates some agencies because you're so used to doing digital credentials or whatever. But let me just use this opportunity to emphasize how important these printed out credentials are and how we use them. We take them with us right the way through a pitch process, because different clients are evaluating at every stage. And they need to be reminded. And so you made that point about it, it helps a client to be able to look through and remind them why they selected an agency, why they shortlisted one, what were the key ingredients. And that makes such a difference. And yeah, it's exactly what happens. We use them right the way through to the final pitch. Because inevitably the CEO of the business hasn't been in all the different stages, and he or she is the one that then says, well, hang on, who is this agency? So and then we can give them a document that actually shows them, and then immediately the culture of that agency comes across. So it is so important. That's good. And the in terms of positioning, how did you sort of get to that with what you did with Saatchi and Saatchi? I mean, the credentials really stood out. I mean, it was a no-brainer for us. But how did you get to that? What did you rely on? Shall I ask you that?
Yeah, well, I think obviously Saatchi and Saatchi is a very storied global brand. So obviously we start there, but I think often that makes it harder with a global brand, because you can be lazy. It's very easy to just take those credentials and say, well, this is what we'll do. But really, we've got our own interpretation of those within the South African and African context. And I think very much it was around really understanding the beating heart of the agency and very much the people. I think obviously the old adage of the people with the best people win. And I think the culture of agencies is often, we know, where in the pitch process, the chemistry is such an important part of those. And it's to be able to take your positioning, reframe it in a South African and African context, but also be able to infuse that with the unique people that we have within Saatchi, and really to let those different quadrants kind of shine in that positioning was really important. And then I think energy is also incredibly important. I mean, the one thing that I loved about those Saatchi credentials was you could almost feel the energy jumping off the slides or the page. Yeah. And I think that's something that again is overlooked. I think we tend to, again, with a global brand, it's very easy just to take what's done globally and that their brand story. But I think really building a unique story for our own context was incredibly important, and that takes time, and it takes a lot of discussion and a lot of crafting, and ultimately, I think a lot of field testing as well. So that's why they become so important in the pitch process. So they've got to have traction. People have got to really instinctively get what you're trying to say. Again, being super singular about your positioning and super singular about what makes you distinctive, but ultimately that message has got to land with the client looking at those. And so we spend a lot of time in that process as well.
Yeah, and I think to just endorse that a bit more, the reason we went with, or the ASA, we were so pleased actually that the ASA guys wanted to help us with this, was because they have a panel of marketers doing their judging. Yes, of course, they have agency people, but we're very specific. We only want marketers to judge the Credentials Awards because they're the ones who need to understand and need to get what's going on. And we see it as a learning opportunity also. The more marketers know about agencies, the better. And you never know. I mean, a marketer might come across an entry during the IAS Credentials Awards, and they might say, "Oh, okay, yeah, actually, I want to go meet that agency." Well, exactly. Great, job done. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Okay, good. Then that's great. Thank you very much, and thanks for entering and winning a nice gold last year. And hope to see you again in the year ahead.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joanna.
All right. Thanks, John T.